Yeah, so we're doing this with no music now for the time being, due to a technological change on the platform recently, which precludes it happening easily. And I was going to sing you a song, but I just can't think of one to sing that would be appropriate to self-love. No, I can't. It would just be something awfully cheesy about loving myself, but it would sound narcissistic, so I'm not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to just give you a quick she storm, as in, you know, the Taoist healing sound, she, which is the one that stimulates your energy field, and that means not in this dimension only. See, the beauty of energy and in the energy field is that energy, as consciousness as well, its sister or brother, whichever way you want to put it, they're the same thing really, operates in outside of as well as within the four-dimensional description that we live in, and or think we live in, to be more precise. The sound that activates the energy field, according to those ancient Taoists, and which I practice myself on a daily basis many times, and it's very similar to doing the Om, but is directed at the, it just is a slightly different resonance, a slightly different pitch, maybe, shall we say. Not in terms of the register, the note, but just the timbre of it, I think. Cadence, maybe, I don't know what. But there's something in the sound shape, the sound wave, that stimulates the energy field in a certain way, makes all the light particles, if you want to see it like that, spin brighter, glow brighter. So make yourself available to receive energy, not from me, of course, but from your own direct throughput with the Tao, your big presence, and me just facilitating that, you know, by creating a resonance for all of us. And that is what you call a shitstorm, as in, you know, without the T. Session 5, welcome to it. Self-love. What the deuce does it mean in practice, I asked. I've just been to the to do a talk at the local, this area, I'm in East Anglia, that's the east side of England, where the Angles used to live, whose famous king was King Edmund, who became a saint. And people would go to his shrine and on pilgrimages every year. You know, he was a holy relic character, and that's the town called Bury St Edmunds, which is a fair few miles yonder. And I was invited by the local chapter of the Dowsers, the water diviners, to come and give a talk at their thing, their lunch. And they're a lovely bunch, the Dowsers. I have a great affinity to them. It's an ancient practice, as you know. What I learned many amazing things, but one of the fascinating things was they teach people to dowse in the army, in the military in Britain, for mines, for land mines. And oil people, people who work in the oil business, use dowsing to divine, if you like, where there's oil. It's even by people who you'd imagine would be the most pragmatist, rationalist. They honour the efficaciousness of the intuitive faculty as expressed through dowsing. And another thing which was mentioned, and I mean, I say myself, is that in time, as you become more centered in your big presence, as we'll be talking about shortly, you don't need divining rods, you don't need a pendulum, you don't need tarot cards. I mean, I use a pendulum occasionally for fun, really. I look at the tarot cards occasionally if I'm just a bit bored, you know, which is rare. But this is just a game. I used to be addicted to them, I must confess, in my 30s and 40s, I think. I used to live by the pendulum, in fact. Shall I do this or shall I do that? And I just do whatever it said to do. Really, big decisions. I didn't even think about anything. I just did the whole thing. As an experiment, it kind of worked. I'm still here. I'm still smiling. And the intuitive faculty, before I start wandering all over the place, let's get back to the subject of self-love. But actually, I said that to you, I told you that, because I'm happy about it. I enjoyed the experience, and I wanted to share that with you. Loving myself enables me to do that without too much fear, because we all do have some fear, don't we? We're communal animals. We therefore depend on the other's approval to some extent for our survival, or so we think. The self-love enables me to share that with you without too much worrying about whether you think I'm, well, you know, boring guy talking about what you just did, or whatever it is. You know, the stuff we fear the other's going to think. Now, if that is if most of it's just this self-love that says, yeah, share it, the other, presumably you, will find some resonance with that, where you'll think of something you've done that you've enjoyed, and it will spark up a bit of joy, or whatever. You just might enjoy the sharing experience that I didn't really share very much of it with you. The other thing that's turned me on, apart from stuff I'm working on, which has been absolutely incredible in terms of miracle progress like I've never known. Well, I guess it's the result of decades of training and recent coaching by a master for 2 years, Jack Lewis Skills. Nonetheless, but the thing that's really blown me away, and I think I'm a little late in coming to become aware of it, but Tyler, the Creator. Tyler, the Creator is the most exciting musical multimedia genius that I've seen truly since I was 7 and saw the Beatles, and that really is saying something. I'm more excited by this guy than anyone since the Beatles, and I've been very excited by many people. But wow, check him out, Tyler, the Creator. The guy is an utter phenomenon, and that's all I'm going to say about it. He loves himself. So what does it mean? The benefits when you do it, when you open the doorway to it, transform your experience of reality to the next level of refinement. What was I on about? So what is love? Let's have a think about this. We've been talking about this in the thing. We in these sessions. The love, when we strip it of all its associations, of all the romance, of all the expectation, of all the fairy tales, of all the ideas that we've pinned onto it. According to the system that I practice and I'm sharing with you, this so-called Taoism, because you don't understand, they wouldn't have called it Taoism, would they? It's an energy that radiates naturally from roughly the center of your chest, that is the primordial energy with which the Tao, the primal cause of all existence, burst forth from the non-existent state into the existent state. The urge to do that, the urge to be from being absolutely nothing, which we cannot conceive of, to bursting into being absolutely something that we can hardly conceive of, but we do quite well at describing it to ourselves, this miracle of the cosmos that we're in. The imponderable amount of force that would be required. Even we know it started with something as small, or it starts with something as small as a subatomic particle. But nonetheless, the force required to come from absolutely nothing, which we can't imagine, into all of this imponderable, infinite universe. That urge is what the Taoists describe as love. Now, that same energy radiates from the center of the chest naturally whenever you allow it to. In other words, whenever you take the brakes off, like the train driver taking the brakes off, and that's what makes the train go, and then the train driver stops the train by putting the brakes on again. I know this because I did drive a train afternoon. That's all you do basically, and honk the horn. So you take your foot off the brake. In other words, you remove the armour from the front of you, and the love flows. Now, this isn't niceness, it's not sweetness. It can be nice, and ideally it would be flavoured nice, flavoured sweet, and all the rest of it. But it's not about that. It is just about something that we can't even really define, of course. It's just an energy that comes when your heart is open and embraces everyone in your orbit, whether that's when you're just thinking about or when you counsel them in person or in email or whatever. And this embrace enables, well, it fills the field between us with possibility, a connection at a soul level. And when that happens, as is going to happen here with us now, it's already happening bit by bit by bit, the presence, the Tao, that informs all of us equally, meets itself through us. And when the Tao meets itself, somehow or other that closes the circuit and causes some kind of, I'm a bit limited in my terms, a kind of a quantum explosion, or not implosion, an explosion, but it's a silent one, a silent explosion from one state of being to another exponentially bigger one. It seems to cut through a few dimensional veils instantaneously. It's subtle. I'm talking from many years of experience of facilitating events like this, not just online, but out in the open air as well. Something happens, and that ignites a process for everyone present, a process of expedited progress, of becoming, of growing into ourselves, of being healed. And coming specific now about the love aspect, when we're able to sit back inside and observe, not only observe from a distance, but be partaking in our observation and in the process, this love radiating throughout our own system primarily, firstly, the embrace that we're giving ourselves heals us. In other words, it brings us back to our original state of wholeness. And the way this plays out, I'll try and be a little less abstract. The way this plays out, I might have mentioned this in an earlier session in the sequence. Coming back from Barcelona very late one night, getting to the hideout, I bought some t-shirts, I'm exhausted, it's 3 in the morning. A normal, sane, sensible person has to get up at 7 in the morning, would go to bed at that point, but I don't. I find myself trying on my t-shirts. Well, you would, wouldn't you? They were really nice t-shirts, and I love t-shirts, and I wanted to see what they look like, because it may be. Now, the conditioned part of me, kind of like my dad's voice, or my mum's voice, or the matron at boarding school, or whatever it would be, oh, stop doing that, it's ridiculous, go to bed and go to sleep. And I noticed it going on there in the front of my body, that little voice to the left of it. And me in the back of my body, observing the whole thing, I had to acknowledge, it wasn't like I had to choose it. I didn't have to kind of convince myself of this. I acknowledged that actually, behind all that noise, I loved me doing that in that moment. And I went with it. That way, I enjoyed it. It took a second or two, and I was in bed and asleep. That way, I was able to sleep without thinking, oh, I wonder what those t-shirts look. I'm not suggesting I would have spent hours thinking of what the t-shirts look like, but there would have been something not quite content because I wanted to do something that I hadn't done. And it would have taken more energy to settle myself if it was only for a few seconds than it would have done just doing the thing I wanted to do and then going to sleep. It's a daft example, I know. But the profound part was acknowledging to myself, actually, underneath all this noise, and that assumed internalized voice of the authority figure from when I was a kid, I love me doing this. In other words, my heart remains open to me doing this. And this you can then, you can extrapolate from this, that any example that you have in your own life of you criticizing yourself, of you assuming that what you're doing is wrong, fundamentally wrong, whether it's trying on your t-shirts when it would be more sensible to be asleep, or spending your time worrying even, that you would assume that's wrong to worry, rather than say to yourself, I actually love me worrying, because, you know, we could extend that into because it makes me feel alive. By acknowledging that actually beneath all the noise of the thing you shouldn't be worrying or stop worrying so much, beneath that noise, you're doing it, and therefore you must realize that actually you love you doing it. Now, what's fascinating is that as soon as you can say, I love me worrying, you're not worrying anymore. You're loving yourself. Love, this embrace implies a deep acceptance, a natural acceptance. And in acceptance, there is healing, coming back to being whole again. And I wouldn't suggest or recommend it necessarily as a discipline, in that you've got to remember every time you are criticizing yourself, you've got to tell yourself, actually, I love myself, because that's self-convincing. I'm not into that. I'm not talking about that. I mean, that has its place. Affirmations done like that, and so on and so forth. There's a time and a place there where they're a good expedient. But what I'm talking about is far more profound than that. It's learning to come in, to occupy, rather, the part of you where the great presence sits and observes the play of you being a human being, doing all the dark things you do, being really rude. And if you're not doing dark things, it's no good. There's no darkness. It's going to be dark, surely. We need that. We need that fumbling aspect to ourselves, that silly, that quaint aspect to ourselves. Because that's what gives humour. And we need the humour. Humour is vital. That's an aspect of loving yourself, accepting yourself. In fact, you could say humour is a device to bring you back to self-acceptance. That's why we use humour. My apologies to everybody for rustling around. But I have to say, I love me rustling around like that. And it's no coincidence that my surname is Russell. So, this brings us on to the next topic. Please feel free to interrupt if I am rustling again. Don't worry about it. Not sure I'll get to do much about it, so don't worry to tell me. What is self? What is yourself that you love, this self-love? What is the self? Well, the self we think we are is the self that we have manufactured. And we've done so in reaction to the varying approval or disapproval of parents, carers, teachers, peers, and so on. And quite quickly, in reaction to an imaginary committee of such judges that we've internalized and haven't even realized that that's not real, it's just something we've conjured up. We manufacture ourselves in reaction to that. It's not done mostly consciously. There are moments of conscious intervention, such as affecting a new hairstyle, a new look, a new stance, a new dance move, a new expression, a new facial expression, a new signature, and so on and so forth. But most of it is done at a very young age, sort of 2, 3, or younger even. Of course, much right from day one, in fact. But it's a fictional self. It's the self that is in reaction to the world around it. The self that has learned to fit in, to play the game, of being one of the herd, or the team, or the tribe, family. And you can see how strong that need is by the intense importance we give, significance we give various symbols like the brand of your sweatshirt or your watch, or the kind of hairstyle you have, or the shoes that you wear, the car that you drive, the kind of job you have, and so on and so on and so on and so on. An amazing amount of importance is given to these things, and that's because it's a very, very powerful need to be bonded with the family. In fact, these superficial signals are really just that. The real bonding occurs at this soul level by the heart being open and the embrace of love enveloping us, or filling the field, informing the field between us. The self that we manufacture and believe is us is always in reaction to the potential approval or disapproval of this imaginary committee of judges that we call the world. So, for example, well, I couldn't really do that because they, whoever they are, would think I was an idiot, or, you know, I'm writing something, I can't write that, or they might think I'm blur. And it's they, this imaginary world. Because there's no one actually standing there watching what I'm writing and go, hey, that bit. No. We imagine these things. And this self, rather, the manufactured self, it lives in a world of imagination, and somehow or other, miraculously, seems to be able to engage in a collective imaginary world with everybody. And a lot of energy is expended globally by everybody, upholding this imaginary world of these manufactured selves transacting with each other, which is all well and good. That seems to be the way the game is meant to be. However, this manufactured self, which Freud termed the ego, it doesn't mean it's bad, it doesn't mean it's a naughty thing that needs to be destroyed. To the contrary, it's something that needs to be developed and strengthened and made as clear and true as can possibly be, and more crucially, as congruent with the big presence within you as possible. Not just for your sake, but for everybody in the world, for everyone in your orbit. Because the more of us that are congruent with our big presence, the more big presence there is, the more of a lighthouse there is then for everybody to aspire to be guided by. The real self is the big self. It's the presence that observes, that is not prey to the throes of the yin and the yang, that has a resilient, flexible, supple equipoise and equilibrium, equanimity in the face of the changing energy from the contraction to the expansion, the difficult to the easy, the going against you, the going for you, play of external reality. This is the self that bears witness to you going through your life. And it has no judgment. It has no preference. It is merely observing. It is consciousness. Enjoying itself, observing life unfolding through this body and this manufactured self that is the mask with which you are interfacing with all your fellows. It is just observing with amused curiosity, shall we say. When you were, and it bears witness, if anything, when it says, here you are going through this. It doesn't judge it, or you shouldn't be, or you should be. Here you are going through this, but implicit in its presence is everything is absolutely all right. Everything is as it needs to be. In this present moment, there is nothing lacking. All is fine. I am here. You are here. We have the gift of existence. This is the only gift there is. All the rest is merely the entertainment, the coloration, that which gives it dynamic, so that there's something, there's a story. If there was no story, what would we talk about? There'd be no game, there'd be nothing to do. Which might be fine, and maybe that's where we're all headed eventually. I suspect not, though, not while actively engaged in the world of relativity in physical form. Eventually the body drops away, and we return to where we've been all the while anyway, without realizing it, in the realm of the real rather than the relative. But for now, we've incarnated to enjoy a journey through a process of four-dimensional reality in time and space. And we know it's an illusion, it's a big trick of the light. We know the body is, we know the mind is, we know everything is. And that's the game. That's what we've come here to do. That's what the Tao has come here to do in our form. So we honor that. And we make it as beautiful as we possibly can for ourselves and everyone around us. Because of the love. That's what love wants us to do. Now, what we are aiming for here in this session is to reoccupy fully, re-identify fully with the big presence inside of ourselves, and to accommodate the fictional self, the manufactured self, and to love it. That's what you could describe self-love as, is the big self putting its arms around the local self, the little self, and loving it. Love you, baby. You beautiful art form, you amazing construction. Oh, I love you. The throes of pain and pleasure and everything that you go through. I love you. I love you. But that's self-love. And that is more powerful than any love you could ever have from anyone. Paradoxically, when you can love yourself, when you allow yourself to, when you agree to, that's all it is, when you agree to, others love you equally. You get the love that we normally crave from others spontaneously, without there needing to be a transaction, without there needing to be a deal. When we are not loving ourselves like that, when we're not able to be the big self holding the small self, all love with others is transactional, because it's construction dealing with construction, and constructions, the currency of constructions is transactional. Now, interestingly, I've said before, you don't have to like something that you love. You can love somebody. You don't have to be liking them. You still love them. You don't put them out of your heart. So there will be things that you do that momentarily you don't like about yourself. We all have those things. That's what makes us such fun. However, when you notice something that you've done or said or thought or are that you don't like in that moment, that you have an opinion, I don't like this. Remember, that which is having the opinion of not liking is the front self. It's the constructed self. It's the self that's in reaction to the world around it. It's not the true self. So you know that I don't like that thing going on, but you're watching it from the big presence and continuing to love yourself. And that precludes, or reduces rather, the frequency of those not liking episodes, where if you were not in your big presence, you would be completely caught in that not liking yourself, to the extent you would not be loving yourself as well. You'd cut yourself off from that deep flow. And so that's your low self-esteem aspect. You can remain with your heart open to yourself regardless. And by training yourself or agreeing to do this, you automatically are able then to have the capacity to do the same with everyone else around you. Now, you might think that, well, that will open up the door for everyone taking advantage of you, because you'll just be loving everybody. But yes, you will be loving everybody. It doesn't mean you have to like everybody all the time. It doesn't mean you have to like what they're doing. And once you are in a state, you'll find that you stand for much less nonsense. Your awareness of your boundaries becomes much clearer. And the clearer you are about your boundaries, the clearer others are automatically somehow around you. Experience. So what you are is not part of that fiction of things that you like and don't like. But all the things you like and don't like exist in the realm of the relative, hence unreal, ultimately. Whereas you, the depth of you, exists in the real. When you learn to step back, or when you agree to step back, you sink back inside, so that you can love yourself in the front there. In fact, you can't not love yourself when you sink back, because you, in your realness, when you are your big presence, are love. You are an expression of a manifestation of love. So we don't have to confuse or conflate love and like, so that when you stop liking yourself, you stop loving yourself too. That's what this will give us. And when you notice, when you can notice that there's an option to not love yourself, when your conditioned mind doesn't like what you're doing, you can then choose to opt for continuing loving yourself doing it. Like, when I know that there's an option to not love myself when I don't like what I'm doing, there's an option, so I can choose to love myself when I don't like what I'm doing. I put the t-shirts on, because part of me doesn't like me doing that, thinks it's silly. It doesn't stop me loving myself, acknowledging I love me doing this. And then all that not liking things just disappears, and all that wasted energy doesn't happen. So when you acknowledge you actually love whatever you do, regardless of whether your conditioned mind approves or not, otherwise you wouldn't have done it, you immediately remove an entire layer of unnecessary, yet hitherto, I'd imagine, persistent interference. And thereby you afford yourself a huge amount more peace, and with that, more energy and more delight. So that's what you get from loving yourself. And the more you do this, the more you acknowledge that you're loving yourself, doing whatever you're doing, which means loving yourself, the more others who love themselves, who are really the people you'd want to be around, rather than the ones who don't love themselves, will be naturally magnetized to you. So that your band of love people, your love buddies, grows and grows. So the more you love yourself, the more it's reinforced by people who love themselves, loving you, and vice versa. And we've covered romantic sexual love, conjugal love, we say, last time. Although I'm going to repeat that because it was a bad recording. So we're going to redo it as a free satsang after this series for everybody who wants to come. I'm not going to say what I said, but it will be that thing repeated. And it's not really that love that I'm talking about now. I'm going to say your love buddy. I mean, just to be that, but I'm thinking about all the people around who love you, you love them. Being with the people who love you, and you loving them. And that band grows and grows. And there's no place to give, no place to pleasure. Surely, no greater pleasure than being with people that you love and who love you. And that doesn't even have to be people that you've known for long at all. I had that with the gals this afternoon doing my talk. So in that room, at least most of the people were loving me and me loving them. There was love. And that's what makes this life beautiful. It's what we all want. So, saying, if you can now get comfortable and let your weight sink into the chair, down, 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 down. Let your weight surrender to gravity and be heavy, heavy. Just relax into gravity, succumb to it. As a counterbalance to that down slump, as it were, picture just above the crown of your head a golf ball size sphere of brilliant bright white light spinning at the speed of light in a clockwise direction, about an inch above the crown of your head, 2 centimeters above. And this is symbolic of the raising of the spirit of vitality. And allow your spine to be attracted upwards, at the crown of your head, and pulling the spine beneath it, attracted upwards towards this light. Not through force, just through a gentle aspiration towards it. Allow your shoulders to drop and to broaden. Just stop holding them narrow. Allow your breastbone to rise up a little bit, and stop suppressing it. Let your back relax, as in stop arching, stop clenching around the kidneys. Let it all relax. Stop clenching absolutely everywhere, in fact, however subtly you're doing so. So stop clenching the back of the neck, stop clenching the forehead, stop clenching the eye socket, stop clenching the mouth, the jaws, throat, chest. Stop clenching your arms, your hands. Stop clenching down the sides of your body. Stop clenching in your belly. Stop clenching all through your back. Stop clenching in your buttocks. Stop clenching in your pelvic floor. Stop clenching your legs, your calves, and your feet. Just stop clenching. Invite all the muscles and sinews in your body to soften. Invite them to. And with that, stop clenching your diaphragm. Allow your breathing to flow without interruption, smoothly, freely. Luxuriate in the incoming breath, acknowledging that it brings you new life. Feel the relief of the outgoing breath as it carries away the old. Value the significance of the breathing for keeping you here. Honour it and enjoy it. And let that enjoyment, let loving the sensation, spark an energy throughout your body, like a light filling you. And with this light filling you, you can see your interior, as it were, but through a different prism than you'd expect to. So rather than seeing it in a physically anatomical way, even though you might not have a clue what it looks like, nobody does really, you're seeing the interior in the sense of the interior of the spirit body, the arena in which you in your deepest, in the deepest sense, the big presence in you exists. So this is the inner a range of dimensions that exist outside of, beyond the four that we limit ourselves to in order to have the earth plane experience. And within this description, should we say, of you, this bigger version, there's quite clearly a front sector and a rear sector. The side seams of your body, like the side seams of your shirt, separate the front sector from the rear sector. And for the sake of convenience, let's just assume that the manufactured self, the fictional self, that which is prey to the reactions of the external world, sits in the front of you. You've constructed a front to deal with the outside world when you were a small child going to school. It's the front of you. And within the front of you is also the fear and the drive and the hopes and the dreams and the worries and the complexes and the things you're confident about and the things that you like, the things you don't like, the opinions, all of it. The whole massive conundrum and drama of being who you are when you're the manufactured self. All of that is in the front. And in the front of the brain is all of the conversation that goes on to uphold that illusion, the incessant driving of yourself around the bend with this thought and that thought, and arguing with yourself and doubting and congratulating and insulting, all the stuff that you're doing in there, all in the front of the brain. So the front sector of you is that noisy aspect that deals with the small self, should we call it. However, in the back of you, rear of the side seams, sits the big presence, the great presence, the eternal observer, you who you really are, who you will be at dropping the body, who you were before you had the body, through countless lifetimes, the witness bearer, the Tao, the God, the great presence, making itself manifest as you. For the experience of it, for that unique flavour that this version called you is able to bring to it, to its experience of being. That's our function. That's the function of the small self and the body and so on. Now, what we have to do is draw ourselves back into that rear part of us now. Aid this with a visualization. Picture all the pores of the skin in the face and the front of the body. Provide a breathing aperture through which you're inhaling a wall of air in your back. And this causes a sense of awareness of being in the back. So you're breathing in this wall of air into your back, and that thrusts you into your back. When you breathe out likewise through all the pores of the skin, through the front of the body, as it were, this wall of air. And that forward motion of the wall of air thrusts you back even more into the rear sector of you. Notice that the more comfortable you become in the rear of you, so that you feel all right in here, there's a sense that the skin of the back, the muscles of the back, are not the limit to you. But you actually exist far larger, far greater than what could fit in the rear of your physical body. That this presence, this great presence that sits behind you, is you. And somehow, in a way that our intellect can't grok, but we can feel, it's the same presence that sits in the rear sector of everyone in this circle that we have here, and everyone there is, and not only the humans, but all the animals and the butterflies and the birds. And I know this because I do have conversations with animals, a definite communication, as I'm sure you do. And we are really just this, in different forms, this big presence here sitting in the back. Now, the front, there's the breastbone, like a wall, to protect us from the potential pain of life, other people, what have you. Picture a pair of sliding doors in the breastbone open and revealing this beautiful effusion of rose gold light, flecked with violet, fuchsia, deep, rich gold light. And it's warm and it smells gorgeous. And it is imbued with the essence of your unique gorgeousness. And I don't just use that word lightly. And by removing the block to it, by sliding the doors apart, and just continuing to breathe freely and be in your back, you, without having to do anything at all, your heart energy, this love, the same love that informs the whole universe, radiates freely throughout the front of your body, embracing this constructed self, approving it somehow, accepting it, allowing it, agreeing to it, and being agreed to, the front self relaxes, and you can be sure the front self will perform far better, relaxed and knowing that it is being agreed with. And you in the back are able, so big you are, coming out the back of you, that you are able to kind of put your arms around your front self, from behind, as it were, as a real, true, loving friend, and just love yourself. It's just pure love, acceptance, embrace. And in this holding of yourself, as it were, the love that you're generating of yourself, for yourself, with yourself, is so powerful that it can only radiate in huge profusion to everyone around you. And everyone around you, naturally, then wants to join in the party. And while this may seem like an abstraction or a fine idea, sitting here in your back as the big presence, you know that it is a view that is true. If you wish it to be, all you have to do is agree to it. You don't have to convince yourself or do anything about it. You just really have to agree to sit in your back and allow this love to envelop your constructed self, and in that acceptance to radiate freely to everybody, and therefore for you to be available to receive the same love coming from everyone who loves themselves as well. And in this, the joy that this generates, and I'm not talking of an excitable joy, a sublime joy, a discrete sublime joy that this generates, we inspire everybody around us. And that is what will keep the human experiment going. That's what will keep us going. This is the strongest force there is. Now, in this state, become clear on your intention for the coming week, just for the sake of having a time frame. And by use of visualization, not convincing yourself, just seeing the picture, perhaps, I'm not wanting to put ideas in your mind, but something around this in your own version. See yourself moving through the upcoming week, whatever that looks like. All the people that you're going to be encountering, whether just in your mind or out in the world around you, that you remain in your back, most of the time at least, with your heart open to yourself, loving you, loving this construction you've created, called you, with such acceptance that the you performs beautifully every task, however small or big, and the radiance that's generated from that is so magnetic in a positive, free way that everybody around is drawn to be in that love with you, even just strangers passing in the street, and everyone feels it and is instantaneously triggered to somehow be in that state themselves, and that as a result of that, everything you have to do happens easily, has an amazing effect, leads to more and more benign opportunities for you, more and more fun on a profound level for you and everyone you transact with. And you find yourself looking back at it and going, that really was probably the most amazingly beautiful week I've ever had in my life so far. And there's more and more to come. Something along those lines. And having agreed to that, to yourself, not to me, to yourself, respectfully, slowly transition into the more familiar state of questions and answers, interaction between us, for which bit Sue is going to show you what to do. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm hoping you can hear me clearly this week, as I've...
This week I can hear you perfectly, like crystal. Yeah.
Yes, for anybody who wasn't aware, we've been having some ongoing audio issues, which after a long session with GoToWebinar, I have now managed to sort out. But unfortunately, it means we aren't able to broadcast music until such time as they update their system in such a way that we can again. So apologies for that. However, moving on to questions. Right, let's start with this question from Helen, who's in Portland, which I think is Portland, Oregon. Hi, Steph. I have some behaviours that I feel out of control about, emotional eating, procrastinating, and so forth. Do you think that if I learn to become aware of loving myself, even while I'm doing something like that, even while I'm doing something that I feel addicted to, something that I don't even necessarily like doing, but I do it anyway, do you think the out of control feeling will dissipate? And possibly even the behaviour will stop, or maybe I will simply stop feeling bad about it. I'd love your insight about this, and thanks for a great satsang.
Thanks, Helen. Helen, Portland, Oregon. How exotic. That's wonderful. I'm there with you right now. That's a lovely question. Firstly, yes, I do. As you said, and I like your humour as well, at the very least, you'll at least stop giving yourself a hard time. So if you are going to do these things that you enjoy doing, you'll enjoy them rather than interfering with your enjoyment of them. But as you infer, when you become aware that you have that option, the compulsion actually starts to diminish. And then, if you acknowledge that you enjoy doing the things, you have to acknowledge that you love yourself doing them, or you wouldn't be doing them. And at the same time, you're perfectly entitled to have an intention that, for example, if you saw yourself as Helen, who, I don't know how this looks, but Helen who isn't compelled to eat when she doesn't actually need to, and actually is enjoying the sensation of not having that food, for example. And believe me, I don't mean convince yourself of this at all. Just to see that, as that would be the intention. And that occurring without any pain whatsoever, no sense of sacrifice at all, purely because that's what you felt like doing. And just to see that, but simultaneously, while holding that as an intention, if that was the intention, to be loving yourself, doing what you're doing all the time, even when you don't like it. And I think you'll find that, look, these processes all do take time, whether you did it through some sort of chemical that stopped you wanting things, or some kind of surgery that removed that part of your brain. Heaven forbid you should ever take that seriously. Don't listen to that. That would take time. It would all take time. It all takes time. But my experience with people and with myself is it seems to be much quicker, or certainly relatively much quicker, doing it this way. Because the other way, we're fighting ourselves. And when we fight ourselves, what we're fighting persists. Otherwise, we couldn't fight with it. And so we get into the habit of having to fight. Therefore, the thing we're fighting with is obliged to stick around. Once we accept the thing we're fighting, we're not fighting it anymore, it kind of cancels it out in time, but with practice, with patience, remembering that the part of us that wants to do these, and we all have it, that wants to do things that would be perhaps not to our advantage, is a part that is steeped in that innate self-hatred that Freud called the death urge. And therefore, we must keep coming back behind that and loving even the part of us that self-hates. somehow bizarrely. It's like keeping on coming back and back and back, because noting that self-hating part, well, yeah, this isn't working, yeah, it can't be bothered, this is stupid, you're never going to pull this one off, you didn't do it that way, you're not going to do it this way, you know, all those voices. So, you know, that is there. You know, we can't deny that. So we even have to love that little monster, you know, by coming back further and further behind it all. So we can see that all of that, even the self-hating voice, is an illusion. And all there really is the one presence that is love, that loves itself, that loves everything. And then we're healed. And something happens. That's my feeling for you. So yes, go with this approach. It's the nicest one anyway. It's much more fun because you get to do what you feel like doing.
Okay, well, I'm loving the part of me that is rubbish at pronouncing some people's names, so I apologise if I get this wrong. I think it's Ger, as in an abbreviated Geraldine, who says, I missed the first couple of minutes, but heard the last bit where you talked about the Tao. Through our own love for ourselves, gets to contact itself in love, and this translates into something wonderful. Can you describe this again? Thanks.
Okay, Juror. This is how I would describe it. Well, here we are. We sit here in a circle, you know, in time and space, and all of us appear to be individuated entities. And in terms of the masquerade, this illusion of the world of the 10,000 things, as the Taoists call it, we are individuated entities. However, these individuals are merely masks. They're different masks that the Tao puts on at the Great Carnival so that it can amuse itself. At the carnival, there could be no carnival if the Tao didn't have masks to put on. I didn't manifest itself as all these myriad forms, but all of them are the same presence with different faces. And when we come back inside so that we're fully occupying the big self within, it's really clear, at least momentarily, we touch on the sense that there is just this one big presence manifesting itself through all these different faces, having a completely unique experience within each of us, which is why it does it, of course. And so alluringly so, in fact, that most of us forget that that is what's going on. We actually think we are that mask. That's how convincing it is. It makes the game for itself. And in that moment of us connecting, or it connecting with itself, which I did discern occur in that process just now, there's a sort of an exponential effect. Some kind of quantum burst occurs on a very discrete sublime level that triggers everyone present into a kind of an accelerated, should we say, or more intensified, amplified opening, a growth process into the self, into the wholeness. I would suggest, propose over the coming week, shall we say. I think that's about as best as I can do it as a rewind for that one. Jur. I hope that satisfied you, and thank you for your question. I love that name. I hope your name is Jur, because it's a brilliant name to say. Jur.
Okay, we have no more questions at the moment, but we do have a comment from Helen, whose question you answered previously, and she says, beautiful, this is a lovely, graceful, new image of self-love. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, thank you, Helen, and please do, well, obviously, I'm sure I don't need to say this, but this is just a view from right now. Of course, we could describe it a million different ways. This is just the frame that I'm describing through at this moment, and the conversation is ongoing. We're experimenting in this forever, I think, one way or another. I think should we leave it there? I'm noticing on a computer screen it being 1859.
There is just one other question you might want to take, actually, Steve.
Okay, yes,
it's a really good one, from Francis. Hello, lovely doc. How does one actually love the self-hatred? I'm thinking of anorexia, self-harming, alcoholism. I work with young adults who struggle so much with self-hatred. Thank you.
Hello, lovely Fran. This is a very difficult one, I do agree. The key, without me trying to get too clever about it, really, and forgive me being repetitive, but it's this sinking back into the rear part that has no preferences. It is just pure awareness, the witness bearer. That when you came through the birth canal with your fontanelles squished together in that intense experience, it was there saying, that's you going through the birth canal. Now, it doesn't have to say it in words. You could just feel it. You know that deepest part of you is just bearing witness. It doesn't have a preference or a prejudice about what's going on. And the part of us that hates ourselves is the part of us that is caught in the illusion of fragmentation, of separation, of being separate from the continuum, the Tao, the one presence. And is therefore the self-hatred is therefore part of this illusion of fragmentation. It doesn't really exist. And where it plays out, this picture show of self-hatred, is in the front part of the body, not the rear part. And I know it's impossible because we can't really get behind ourselves, but it's rare to see people self-harming on the backs of themselves. They tend to self-harm where they can see themselves, where they can see it. They're wanting to make the display to themselves where they can see it in the front. That's where the illusion goes on. And by learning to come into the back, keeping the heart open, you therefore are naturally accepting everything that you're seeing in the front. And by acknowledging that even when committing an act of self-hatred, you actually love yourself doing that. That's the key. Because look, I don't want to make too much of it. It's a bit of not a great example in the first place, but if you took it to the extreme, me being really exhausted, having to get up a few hours later, at the point when I was extremely busy, well I always am anyway, but I was really busy that week, and making myself stay up even a bit later still, just for the sake of a bit of stupid vanity, that you could say was a very mild form of self-harming, but even in that, okay, it was mild. I wasn't slicing myself or doing anything like that, but it's along that route. It's right at the very beginning of it, but it's there. There I go, I must acknowledge that even though there is that part of me going, you shouldn't be doing that, I loving myself doing this. And then it became an experience of pleasure. I got it done very quickly and went to sleep. Had I been not able to do that, perhaps I would have taken longer even still and been confused and wouldn't enjoy the process. So somehow I'd probably stand there longer looking at the t-shirt, then trying on another one, doing the other one again. You know how it goes. You tend to make it worse. You exacerbate it by fighting with it. So if the person who is about to slice themselves can acknowledge that they actually love themselves doing this absurd thing, the compelling aspects of it will diminish. They become in command again, rather than it being in command of them. The only way they can do that, however, is learning to sit in their back. So more attention paid to teaching them that will save them more time on the other side, learning how to stop punishing themselves, I believe. I hope that clarifies it. I don't want to be repetitive, but I have to be. I mean, this back thing is the most powerful thing I know. And I forget it all the time, even though I'm talking about it all the time. We all do. And that's why the more we can repeat it, really, we need to. It's important till we get the habit. And it does happen. I mean, more and more now, I'm in my back most of the time. I rarely run disturbance on myself. I'm generally in a state of flowing relative peace. And it can never be fully at peace because you just wouldn't, because you've got yin and yang. It has to be the conflict in the front. And we have to keep getting drawn forwards and then remembering come back, because that's what we're here for. We're here to be distracted. That's the point of the game. And but that's the point of why it was set up. The winning the game, if you want to put it in those stupid terms, is learning to come back and notice, because then we're really enjoying it. Then comes the depth of experience, whether slicing ourselves or not, and then the tendency to slice or do whatever it is reduced dramatically. I've seen it work in our times, so I would definitely recommend that. Lovely, lovely Francesca, and lovely everybody. Bless you all, and thank you, Sue, and thank you everybody for being here. It's such a joy. I love doing this. Next week is the last one in the sequence. Love the Tao. Love is the Tao. The Tao is love. That is, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. I might have said it all already, but I guarantee I've been thinking about it all week, because that's what I do, and it'll be a delight to find out what I do say at the time. And thank you so much for being here, and because it would be so weird just sitting there doing this on my own. And I do, though. I do it every day on my own. Obviously, we all do, I suppose. But it's beautiful sharing it with you, my family online. How lovely. And bless you all. And may you have the most remarkable, remarkable week of your life so far. Thank you. And that's me out. Bye.